Let's take a look at some information and charts on Zcash for Brave New Coin. So Zcash is a privacy enabling coin, optional privacy, unlike Monero, similar to Dash, and it's important to understand what that means when you're talking about shielded or unshielded addresses and completely private addresses, Z to Z addresses. Already at this point, you lose a bunch of people who just don't care for the most part, and already shows you why default privacy is just always best. If you're going to tack on some capability, it's best to just have it automatic all the time, like Monero. Now, Monero has trouble getting listed on exchanges. It's delisted from many Asian exchanges for regulatory reasons, and Zcash privacy addresses or private addresses have a hard time getting enabled on exchanges for the same reasons. The difference between Zcash and Monero is that the Monero privacy pool is much bigger because it's default, whereas Zcash has a much smaller shielded pool, much smaller end-to-end encryption. I'll look at those numbers based on what the Zcash people are telling me they are. So it's important to know what people are using. You know, if it's a privacy coin and that's the use case, are people using it? Are people able to use it? Do people even know what it is? And again, when we're investigating privacy coins, it's always good to look at companies like Chain Analysis. Are they able to crack the privacy, essentially? And in Dash and Zcash's case, they are. They go on to explain how Zcash works in the real world, and that basically a very small percentage of transactions are end-to-end encrypted, completely shielded. So yes, it's privacy enabling, but it's important to understand in reality, not many people are using it for that case currently. And it's also worth looking at, is Monero traceable, right? CipherTrace said in November 2020 they have 2 patents for this. Now you can try to trace Monero by looking at the nodes or having your own nodes. You can also use things like dust attacks to try to track the encryption through the transactions. But thus far, I'm not aware of any super strong traceability for Monero that's reliable. And even there's some additional comments from a Chain Analysis employee about Monero talking about basically they can't confirm or deny that it's even traceable in any way. But they go on to say in here that they really like the Monero algorithms, and they mention a weakness being the constantly changing consensus algorithm, which at this point isn't changing constantly, it's just randomX. So what they're getting at here is they're talking about centralization, and just updates to the chain sort of make the anonymity set smaller because it kind of breaks up the total pool. So it's important to understand all that when you're seeing why is everyone dumping on Zcash for being what it is relative to the other coins like Monero. If you look at Zcash's hash rate and difficulty, it had been up and to the right for many months into 2019, into 2020. Maybe some of this is China news related. Maybe it's price related. It's hard to know. You know, Bitcoin gets all the flack for Chinese mining, but it's hard to know how much of this mining on other proof of work chains also occurs in China. So this is correlation without causation, but it is declining at the same time all this China stuff's going on, as well as Zcash prices falling. ASICs on Zcash using that for Equihash specifically, there haven't really been any new ones publicly released since mid-2020. So usually when we see continuous upticks in hash rate, there's some speculation that there's some covert ASIC mining going on in like pre-production, although it doesn't really look to be the case just yet. And these are all profitable still at 4 cents per kilowatt hour, which is what most industrial miners in China would be getting. If we look at the inflation rates between a bunch of proof of work coins, we have Grin at the top here at 40%, BTC Monero down here at 1.5%, and then Zcash at 11.7%. So regardless of where you think any of these coins are going to be in the future, it's just a much harder sell for people when you're dealing with 12% inflation, or in Grin's case, 42% inflation. I mean, that's going to dramatically affect price in a big way. Even ETH, LTC, and Doge only have around 4% inflation. So it's a tough sell for a lot of people to look at that in a group and say, yeah, this is a buy and hold with 12% inflation. Here are the transaction counts for Zcash, which have essentially held flat, although It's important to note that these metrics do not include shielded transactions, although based on the numbers I'm seeing, it's not like these transaction counts get much better with shielded transactions. And it's hard to be too bullish on a network when transaction counts are stagnant. We are seeing a big rise in average transaction values, probably due to the rise in price recently. If we look at the shielded pools according to Zcash, between Sprout and Sapling, I always want to say Sapling from MTG, but Sapling. So Sprout was the initial privacy pool. Sapling, I believe, is the current upgraded version of that. So you had some bifurcation, some fragmentation in 2018 and 2019. That's largely cleaned up now. It's mostly Sapling. Even still, collectively, Zcash stored in shielded pools is 600,000 out of total of 10 million circulating Zeke. And if we look at the fully shielded transactions, this is end-to-end encryption per quarter. It's certainly grown since 2017, but still remains an incredibly small total percentage of transactions. And a lot of this has to do with just not being enabled on the exchange side of things. If this was enabled on all exchanges, then this number would increase dramatically. But for the most part these days, many people do not use native wallets to handle crypto. So you're just not going to see many people even able to use the privacy functionality getting to or from the exchanges. Now you can get partially shielded to or from the exchanges, but you can't get fully shielded as far as I'm aware. Now I may be wrong on that, and you'll let me know in the comments. If you look at the NBT for Zcash, it's actually near an all-time low, which is bullish, and active addresses are rising, continue to rise. Again, this does not include shielded addresses, although based on what we're seeing on this chart, again, it doesn't look like those will have a massive impact on this anyway. But I like that active addresses are rising, NBT is falling. That is bullish for any coin when you get a picture like that. One last thing from the metrics side of things, if we look at MVRV, which is on-chain activity versus market cap, again, similar to NBT, and then we compare that to price in the fill here, MVRV has had a difficult time above 1, although it's exceeded 2.5 before in late 2017. So even on this recent stab up, it briefly exceeded, MVRV is the fill. Confusing myself. MVRV is the fill, exceeded 1.5 in all of the previous all-time highs or relative all-time highs, including recently. So it looked overcooked on on-chain metrics relative to market cap. This did exceed 2, so anytime you see stuff like this, it's important to read it as being overbought and potentially reversing rather than a hard stop for a reversal. Some other Zcash stuff in the ecosystem, they have a Grayscale Trust, 49 million AUM, kind of the middle of the road here. No OTC symbol that I'm aware of. They're also available on Ren as far as DeFi stuff is concerned. If we look on the Ethereum chain, there's around 1.8 million Zcash and then 18,000 Zcash on Binance Smart Chain. So in the grand scheme of things, not a whole lot, but the potential is there to use Zcash on DeFi rails, basically. I don't believe this system would enable any privacy features whatsoever for the coin. You know, this is like wrapped Zcash, right? Just like if you wrap Monero, I believe you break down the privacy functionality at that point in time. Looking at Google Trends for Zcash, mainly pinned to the floor, up slightly over the past few months, but since 2018, not a lot of search interest or activity on Google. Switching to some TA, we have the Bitfinex long-short ratio. Up here, virtually 0 shorts, and longs got obliterated on that move down. Whether they closed or got margin called, I'm not sure. Probably just closed. These are ETH-BTC, by the way, not ZQSD. So it's important to note as well, but they closed a ton recently. We have the 5200 cross, RSI, VPVR, yearly pivots, and overall, similar to EOS, similar to even Ripple and Monero, chart-wise, it's been a bit of a slog up since January. Lots of volatility, 70% drawdown over the past few days with some price support at 100. 100's the sort of magic psychological number. So if you're bullish, you don't want to see anything sub 100. If you do, you're probably going to 60 because that's the next big volume support area. Anything on the way up is going to be tough to prognosticate about because it's such a wide range. Generally on a drawdown like this, you'd expect some sort of 50% mean reversion, which is probably around 200. But trend-wise, this will need some time to figure itself out. And on the cloud, you can see it was kind of a mess since January, but it was still above the cloud, and now it's definitely below. So we are the most bearish we've been on many alts that look like this since January. Zcash BTC briefly had a 5200 bull cross, and it looks like that's going to get canceled here rather soon. And it's just in this massive volume area on Bitfinex from 2000 sats to 8000 sats. So, you know, if you want to trade that range, go for it, I guess. But this could be a multi-year inverted head and shoulders situation where we don't see any actual gains against BTC until 2023, you know, something like that. I'd watch this horizontal at 8,000 sats. If you start to see movement above 8,000 sats, then you can be fairly confident that you'll get continuation beyond then. But historically, there haven't been any signs of bullishness really on this pair. And here's the USD long-short ratio. Mainly only long, but that's come off considerably as well over the past few weeks since January. And the last TA chart is this ETH-BTC pitchfork, still bearish, and it's just hard to be bullish against BTC when you're seeing this multi-year downtrend, essentially. If it can escape the midline here for a decent number of days, then you can say, all right, maybe this has some bullishness in it. If this can go sideways, if this can form that inverted head and shoulders pattern, then I can get more bullish on it. But right now, it definitely doesn't look like it's got any strength in it at all. Lastly, I'll mention the ETH-BTC fund I trade for Techemy Capital on enzyme.finance. You can see AUM, allocations, trades, deposits, withdrawals. It's all transparent. You can participate if you want through an ETH or USDC deposit in the smart contract. Then it functions as copy trading. We also have a DeFi portfolio that has 15 to 20 blue chip alts, where you can also see allocations, AUM, trades. It's all done through DEXs, as well as deposits and withdrawals. So that's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.